Good morning. Welcome back, I can say to each of you, to World Interfaith Harmony Week. I don't need to go through my intro spiel because you all have been here at least one other time this week. So I will skip all of that. Yay, we can get to the goodies. So I'm going to start this morning. Today's topic is compassion. And I'm hoping that we can find that soft place within ourselves. Compassion for ourselves, what a radical idea. Compassion for the world, compassion for nature. So I'm going to start with a reading called Soft Center. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes or avert your gaze. We will move into the 5 breath meditation right after this. So I'll just take a pause and move from one thing into the next. Soft center, an artichoke heart, the mud flats at low tide, hot lava, a flower stamen, guts of a leaf, dog, sea star, ourselves. The natural world reflects back to us infinite images of the soft core potential life carries. All life, us too. The natural disasters in subsistence landscapes, wars, riots, contentious politics, the ecotone between hardness and vulnerability. A boy hurls a rock in the shape of profanity at an innocent passerby. She could have reacted unkindly from her own outer crust. Instead, this woman I know chose to move into her own vulnerable core, to see the damage to his tender heart that has compelled him to become stone cold, hard, aggressive. She found her own gentle beauty in that moment instead of defaulting to mean retort. The wisdom of her life told her she could remain safe. The wisdom of her heart spoke volumes about his need for love. Sympathy toward harshness, kindness in the face of adversity, goodness greeting toughness, compassion in the moment of cruelty. It feels like we really can practice getting softer, riper, gentler as we live through worlds of hostility. Move closer in for a better look. See how the anger is belied by a naked underbelly. It is within every one of us, the ability for compassion, the ability for destruction. Where within yourself can you find the seed with the potential to flourish rather than decay? How can you learn to grow rather than stagnate? To become fluid rather than stuck? Because it does start with each one of us. We can no longer afford to point the finger outward. Let's do away with pointing at all. Let us simply commit to being with our own nature, to finding that soft center. So please take in 2 or 3 deep inhalations, gentle, thorough exhalations. Exhaling out a little bit extra, that stale air. Finding your own rhythm. Here again is the 5 breath meditation, slightly modified by me. It's been offered to us by the Sufi tradition. With this first breath, I encourage you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. This is the breath of earth. Connect to all the earthy things, soil, rocks, minerals, the solid parts of the world. bark and fur and flesh, your own flesh and bones, because you too are made of earth. With a second breath, breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. This is the breath of water. Connect to all the fluid things, oceans and rivers, glaciers, falling snow, blood and sap, the water within cells and within bodies, within your own body too, because you are made of water. With this third breath, breathe in through the mouth and out through the nose, breathing through the heart. This is the breath of fire. Connect to all the fiery hot things, lightning and lava, sun and stars, the heat in the body, the heat of your deep self, because you too are made of fire. With this fourth breath, consider breathing in through the mouth and out through the mouth. This is the breath of air. Connect to all the things of air, wind in all its forms, from breezes to hurricanes, the breathing of plants, carbon dioxide in and oxygen out, the breathing of animals in exchange, oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. Your own breath moving through your lungs, catching your fire, activating your blood, feeding your body, because you too are made of air. The fifth breath, the ether breath, so subtle it might look like you are not breathing at all. Perhaps breathe in and out through the mouth and nose at the same time. This last breath connects all things, all of the elements and all that is more than elemental. The divine spirit moving through the cosmos, moving through the spirits of all, and through your own spirit. Breathe gently and rest in this interconnection with all beings. Take a few more healing breaths in and out. Find your soft center, your fiery, watery, earthy, air-filled belly. And when you are ready, gently, slowly return. Welcome back from your meditation. Welcome to Trinka. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Gosh, it's so wonderful to see you all. You all just feel like friends, sisters, brothers, kin after a few days together. This is really, really lovely. So again, our topic today is compassion. And I'm hoping there will be an activity. Some of you may need to modify the activity for various reasons like weather. But I will present that in a few moments. But I wanted to just open it up. We all know each other a little bit for a minute of our lives anyway this week. What do you guys say about compassion when you hear the topic compassion? What do you think about? What do you feel? And I know I'm going to call some of you out, not by name, but I happen to know that some of you are healers of yourself, healers of others. You're a healer of some sort if you've shown up this week to Interfaith Harmony Week. So what is compassion? How do you feel it? How do you experience it? What the heck does it have to do with the natural world?
For me, especially in the reading you were sharing about the boy threw the stone at the woman, it really reminded me of Pierre Pradervan, The Gentle Art of Blessing. And I remember when I read that, I think it was last year, just, blessing everybody, those who harm you and those who love you, just because it not only heals you, but heals them. And for me, like, that's what compassion is that spiritual healing and that divine pathway that allows us towards unity. So the compassion is just like this elevated spiritual way we can connect. So for me.
Elevated spiritual way we can connect. That's beautiful. And it is a spiritual principle. I mean, it's at the center of so many religions and faith traditions, right?
Last week I listened to a podcast about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. One of the things that they talked about was the difference between annoyed and amused. So if we are annoyed with someone, how then do we approach them? Typically, it's like there's an edge to that, and we don't want to interact or whatever. Or, but if we can be amused by them instead, that opens up the possibility for compassion. Whereas if we come from a place of being annoyed, there's no room for compassion. But if we can be amused, then that it opens up compassion and curiosity.
So what I'm hearing, and please modify this if I'm missaying this, that so we heard from Faith that compassion is a value or a spiritual precept, for lack of a better word. And Grace, what I'm hearing is that compassion is a shift in perspective, or that a shift in perspective can lead us to compassion.
Yes, yes.
Great. And I appreciate
go ahead.
Sorry, Colleen, one quick thing I want to say back to Faith is I appreciate the name Pierre. I can never pronounce his last name. I ran across a quotation by him, and it's not in my notes here. If you wouldn't mind, you guys, if you have resources, put them in the chat. And once they're there, people can take photos of the chat or whatever, so that we can all share those resources. There are loads and loads out there. Colleen, were you starting to say something?
Yes. For me, a compassion is being able to shut out the me mind, I call it the me mind, and to find, to be able to quiet enough in order to see things as they are and not want to change them, but to offer kindness and acceptance. I call it the silent action for peace.
Oh, I love that.
You know, it's a practice. It's something that we all have the capacity to do, but so many of us haven't been taught that. in our, you know, especially in the Western cultures, you know, of silencing and really trusting our inner core and not dependent on somebody else's perception. So that's what I think.
So action-oriented compassion.
It's healing for the person offering it and those that you're sending it out to.
Yes, exactly. Let's not forget that compassion is for us too. You're going to hear me say that until you're sick of it today. I think when we talk about compassion, there's so much focus about putting it out there. I taught a course on compassion using some of these same activities that we're doing this week a couple of years ago, and I also offer it through my own business. And one of the sections of the course is on self-compassion, and it was amazing. The first couple runs of the course that had an international audience, what people were saying about their shift in perspective about self-compassion, that it just, for some people, it didn't even register that it was a thing, a thing that existed, something to maybe practice or consider or open our hearts to.
Yes.
It's interesting that this is a focus. I'm just starting to read the book by Karen Armstrong, 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life, More Compassionate Life. And it's interesting, she is a religious historian, and she compares the broad range of major religions and sort of sought out the core strain of what they all share, and came up with the golden rule of, the common Christian, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But it's in Confucianism and Islam, and there's some strain of relating self to other and doing to them what you would hope for yourself. And that seems to be the center of her concept of what is compassion. And so there's a need for empathy in trying to understand the other person, and then assessment of what you would want in their situation, and connection of seeing yourself in others or others in yourself. And in the Bible, there is love thy neighbor as thyself in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And that means that in order to have compassion for others, you also have to have it for yourself first. And
Absolutely.
I think this concept of compassion is sort of not an impersonal love, that it's not a love relationship in romantic ways, but it certainly is a way of living love. And I think we have to be careful when we consider compassion not to fall into pity, because compassion usually revolves around pain. There's compassion when we see someone hurting or lacking or wanting, and pity kind of keeps them in that place of pain. And compassion doesn't necessarily keep them there, to me. There's an assumption, I guess probably from my own faith, that there is always something that can be done to make it better. And sometimes that's silence and leaving them alone, and sometimes, but there's a sort of listening that's involved in compassion, wanting to make it better, but to make it better not in, I guess when I really apply it, I want to make myself better. So I would want to help someone else make themselves better instead of imposing my, whatever I think they should do on them. So it's a very simple concept, but it takes, I think it takes kind of a dance between understanding self and other in order to approach it.
Thank you so much for that, Trinka. A couple of things that come to mind. One is, yeah, when I think about pity, which I do think is a kind of the shadow side, or the where compassion can go when it's not fully embodied and not perhaps fully healthy. Pity is a hierarchical relationship, in my opinion. Compassion is an equal one, right? We are two humans, neither with something over or better than or more something than the other, or less something than the other. So that's one thing I wanted to say in response to that. So I appreciate you saying that. And then the other piece is Karen Armstrong, who I actually was fortunate enough to meet at the Parliament of the World's Religions in 2015 in Salt Lake City. Had my photo taken next to her. I was so proud, having read the book and been involved with the Charter for Compassion for a number of years now. I would encourage all of you, if you have not heard of the Charter for Compassion, and some of you might have ended up here this week through the Charter for Compassion, if you have not heard of them, Charter for Compassion, please do look them up. I was going to mention that anyway, but Trinka provided a perfect segue today. They are an amazing organization. They have a lot of things going on. The piece that I read to you at the beginning today called Soft Center is actually on their CEI blog. CEI is a Compassion Education Institute. They offer courses through that part of themselves, through their organization, and I've taught for them, and that piece I read was one of my pieces. I have a few blogs up there, but they, yeah, they have all kinds of things going on, compassionate cities initiatives. They have something going on for maybe a couple of more months now of something called Coffee, Compassion, and Citizen Discourse. So many of their offerings are free, including the Coffee and Compassion. It's Thursday mornings. I missed it today because I wanted to be here with you, but I would encourage you guys to check them out if you haven't heard about them. And it's probably www.charterforcompassion. And lots of resources. And the book that Trinka mentioned, also the 12 Steps book, is amazing. If you're familiar with 12 Steps in a recovery lens, it's not that. So just to be really clear, it's a different kind of 12 steps. Who else has something to add about compassion? We're all holders of this wisdom. Hi, Fiona, please.
I was thinking today about presence, that the compassion being with another, there's a complete openness of presence. And I guess that you apply it to yourself too, because you're open to what you're feeling and your grief and the suffering. So being with and being fully present.
And could we even stretch that and go so far as to say, if we aren't present, how could we possibly be compassionate? Truly, fully, in a whole sense? Yeah. And presence also, I mean, I've talked about this, probably said it until you're sick of hearing it this week too, about presence with the natural world, right? We were talking about that before we formally started today, about looking at snow and not just looking out the window and going, oh yeah, it snowed, it's X number of inches, but really getting into that moment of abiding with the light and the temperature and the sensation, and what are the nuances and textures of that moment by moment presence. I love the word presence anyway. I always think it should be spelled with a capital P. I think it's a really powerful word. Who else, if anybody, wants to say something about compassion? Hi, Andreas. Yeah, hi.
Just hi. I hope it doesn't lose too much in translation now, but there's an interesting detail about the word compassion in the Jesus prayer. The German version of the Jesus prayer, I don't know whether you're familiar with the Jesus prayer, goes like, Herr Jesus Christus, Sohn Gottes, erbarme dich meiner. And the end means, please Jesus, have compassion with me. Now, the roots of the word barmherzig, which is the German word for compassion, the roots of this word are coming from the Hebrew word rachem. And rachem also has the meaning of the uterus, meaning the womb of the mother's belly where we are.
Ah.
So that means that the Jesus prayer says, Lord, please lead me back to my roots, where I'm coming from.
Mm.
So there are different meanings to this word, erbarmen, compassion.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing that in. When I think about wombs, and I use that word frequently, as I said earlier this week, I have my pet words. I use them over and over in my writing, and I don't care that I repeat myself a lot. The womb is that soft, gentle, warm, safe place. I mean, that's the intention for the womb. Hopefully it is like that for most growing babies. Yeah, beautiful. Anyone else want to say something before we move forward a bit? So much wisdom in this room. These rooms, these 9 rooms we're in. Okay, so let's transition a little bit. So compassion. We're clear that there are perspectives and heart stances and actions and values and etymology when we talk about compassion. What about compassion for the earth, for the world of non-human living and non-living beings? What about that? So here's what I would like for you to do. And if you cannot manage what I am about to, because I recognize there might be some constraints for a couple of you. If you cannot do this activity after the others have left, because you will, I'm asking you to leave your computer in a second for a few minutes. After the others have left, if you find that this won't work for you, stay here and we'll figure out a workaround, because I have a few in mind. So here is the task before you. For those of you who have an outdoor space, however cold or snowy, however wet and muddy, however hot, dry, and smoggy, whatever your circumstances, however dark, some of you are in nighttime now, I want for you, those of you who are able, to go right outside your door. Yes, into nature. Yes, into the outdoors. And I want you to find very close by, I'm not asking you to walk a mile or a kilometer or down the road, but right outside your door, find the ground, preferably not cement, preferably rocks or soil or grass or snow or something. And if you are able to bend down, to stoop, I would show you, but you all know what stooping is. Not necessarily hands and knees, because some of you will get wet and cold, but stoop down and put your hands on that ground of earth, on the body of Mother Earth, Father Earth, Sister Earth, Brother Earth. Put your hands there, close your eyes, and just abide there. Just be there. Breathe. Notice sensations. Still your mind. I'm not asking you to do this, especially for those of you who are in a very, very cold place or some other extreme thing, but I'm asking you to go out and maybe spend 5 minutes. That includes walking out, right? So 5 or 6 minutes to just place your hands on the earth. So whenever you're ready, you can go. The other thing is, I would ask for you, please, to not talk with anybody. Some of you have neighbors or roommates or family members or whomever. See if you can do this in silence. If they want to talk to you, I need a few minutes, okay? And we'll see who's left.
Did I understand that right? For whom it's not possible to do that, we stay here in this room.
Yes, and I will give you a task. I just want to see who's left. And I think Faith left because she put herself down. So Andreas, do you have any kind of, are you in an apartment or a city or something?
Yeah, downtown Stuttgart. If I go outside, there's the bus station in front of it, and there's only cement and streets. So
okay. Do you have anything in your home or in the apartment complex or just outside, anything that's growing, like a plant or some cut flowers, something like that?
yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you have something like that, you can do the same activity with that. And if it's a plant, like I have these plants here, and the pot is very little, still you can get your fingers in there a little bit. See if you can do this activity, but just touching. I've done it in airports. People look at me like I'm crazy, but I've actually gone into airports because so many airports now, they're beautiful and they have big gardens growing inside the airport. And I just go over, in the craziness of the airport, and I put my hands right in the mud. People kind of look at me. But I would encourage you, whatever you have there, maybe it's just the leaves of the plant, but just spend a few minutes doing this practice with that living, non-human living thing. Okay?
All right.